Are you looking to sharpen your budgeting skills? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Budget Couple Podcast, where we talk about life, family, and how to afford it. And now, the Budget Couple themselves, Nate and Danielle.
Welcome to the Budget Couple Podcast. I'm Nate.
And I'm Danielle.
This week, we're going to answer a listener question about getting married and joining finances and a whole bunch of other stuff related to that. But before we do that, we want to thank you to those of you who have left reviews for us on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice. We really appreciate it. And the best way to spread the show is to either leave a review for us or tell a friend. We really appreciate you doing one or both of those. It helps grow the show and helps give us more content for us to talk about. So thanks so much.
I'll start by reading a little bit of an excerpt from the email we got just to give you some context. We got a listener asking or saying, I'm getting married next summer and would like some tips and tricks on how to join finances, how to pick which bank we'll stick with, joining credit cards, and all that sort of stuff. What else should I be thinking about before or after we get married? Life insurance, IRAs, house down payments, etc. So some of the other facts that went along in that email, they each make $30,000, so combined income of $60,000 once they join their finances. They don't have any debt, which is awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, awesome.
They're cash flowing currently their college expenses and their wedding. They want to save for a home and a car over the next few years here. For the car, they're looking at a Chevy Volt.
Hybrid cars or plug-in hybrid. It's an awesome car. But just heads up on that, the base model of that costs like $33,000, which is over 50% of your income. So either go used or go with a different model of car. Not trying to destroy dreams or anything, but just make sure that unless your income goes up, just because it puts you in a dangerous ratio of income to car. It's too much car for not enough income. Yep,
exactly. They want to put 20% down on the house if they're able to, which is a good goal to have. You get rid of that PMI, the private mortgage insurance. If you go below 20% for a down payment, you do have to pay that PMI each month. They also want to stick to less than $150,000 for a house, which is very, very reasonable with their income.
Absolutely. And the listener also mentioned that she works for a home builder, so she gets a 10% discount off of new houses that they build. So that's an even better thing. So they could afford a $150,000 house or get a bigger house, but only pay $150,000 depending on the discount. So those are all things to consider, but there's a lot of moving parts of this questions. So we're going to start off with the joining finance part of this, where we talked about banks, credit cards, and things about getting married beforehand. And then we'll talk about other things to do with like marriage and all the nuts and bolts of that come with budgeting, finances, and all of that. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at banks. I kind of broke this up into two categories. The easy parts, which is the nuts and bolts of the bank, and then the hard part, which is actually working with somebody on finances when you probably haven't had to do that before. So the easy stuff. Basically, you're going to open up a bank account or you're going to join to the other person's, or they're going to join to you, depending on what's going on. Now, when we got married, Danielle had a Bank of America bank account because she was living in Texas at the time, and I was living in Pennsylvania, and I had a local bank. I don't even think the bank that I had exists anymore. Union? It wasn't a credit union. No, it was just a bank, and it's gotten merged like 5 different times, so I don't know the current name of it because it's gone through so many changes. But what happened there was I closed down my bank account, and took that cashier's check and deposited it into Bank of America. Our reason for going with Bank of America at the time was we knew that we'd be leaving Texas, and we knew that we'd be kind of transient for a few years as Danielle pursued her education. So we needed a national bank because moving banks all the time isn't a hard process. It's just a process that we didn't really want to have to deal with. So that was our reasoning for that, and still to this day, we're with Bank of America because...
Yeah. We just don't like change.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, in all honesty,
I think one of the things, and you asked you asked about what to look for when you're joining a bank. Definitely look for low fees or no fees, preferably. ATM fees, checking fees, money order fees, transfer fees. There's all sorts of fun things. So dig it down into the fine print and make sure you know all of those fees and know which ones you might actually be utilizing. We don't tend to do much of the things that would cause fees. So Bank of America is not the greatest. They kind of charge you for everything.
Yeah, they're terrible. They're terrible at all of that stuff. So I would never recommend them as an existing customer. I would never recommend them as a bank for somebody else to use. It's just that's the thing we've used for a while, and
we haven't actually incurred many fees from that. So we don't worry much about it. Now, if you're someone that uses a lot of money orders or you're using an ATM all the time, make sure you're checking into that, because Bank of America charges us, I think, $3 for an ATM if we use an ATM that's not theirs.
Right. And we also have to pay the fee for the other bank. So it winds up costing us between $8 and $6 or $10, depending on whatever the fees are from the other company. And they don't reimburse any of those. A lot of banks will reimburse them. I would really check into credit unions in your area. Credit unions are usually the best, most friendly, consumer-based bank out there, because they're not a traditional bank. They're owned by the people who invest in them, and their job is to make things lower price for you. So credit unions are where I would look at, as far as a bank goes. But with that said, once you have that established on whatever one you choose, looking for low fees, looking for something in your area, all of that, you're going to go through and start directing all of your paychecks to that account. So you're going to get all the paychecks that you currently have going wherever they're going. You're going to start directing them, give out new routing information, whatever your company requires to do, and you're going to stop putting that into a new account. And then finally, whatever accounts you currently have, you're going to close those out, take the cashier's check that they give you once you close it out, and deposit that into your new bank account. So you have your sum of money in there, and you're able to go and start doing what you need to do.
That's the easy stuff. Now we get into the hard stuff. And this is agreeing on your budget, trying to decipher wants versus needs, discussing your goals as a couple. So this is the hard part. And it's hard, but it's also kind of fun too, because that's part of marriage in especially the first year of it. But it's even better if you can do some of this before you get married. And it's great that you're actually thinking about it, because I feel like, we talked a little bit, but we knew we had the same values and goals, but we didn't really dig into budgets and finances until we were a few months into marriage and realized that our budget wasn't working. And we did talk about that, I think, in our first or second episode.
I believe that was the second one. But even still, I think that we both had a sense of how we were with money. Like, yeah. I knew you were super cheap, and you knew that I spent more than you, but I didn't go out and just blow money like it was nothing. I did have respect for money. I still don't think money's all that important, as far as like, I don't really think about it, but that's because I'm in a position where I don't have to worry about it. So
I think about it all the time.
We're lucky in that spot where like we both have good jobs. We both have more than enough income to support ourselves. So it's not a constant worry or struggle. But that's a position of privilege. So I don't want to like downplay that. But at the same time, money is not something that I think of on a constant all the time basis. It's something that kind of, we respect and we don't use a lot of, because one, we know other people don't have it, and two, we know we can do things with them other than impulse buys.
So agreeing on a budget is definitely going to be the harder part of this, and it might take you a little while. If you do this, if you start things that you could do before you get married and join your finances is just look at each other's budgets. So you probably have your own separate budgets right now. If you don't, then, maybe in some ways that's easier, because you can just create one together once you get married. But if you do have your own separate budgets, take a look, see if you guys kind of do things similarly. And if you're matching up, and talk about how you might want to structure it once you get married. So, agreeing on the budget, also wants and needs, what do you have to have? Your mortgage, your electric bill, nowadays your phone bill. What is an absolute need? And then what are the things that you can kind of play around with and figure out, we want to keep it to $200 a month or something. So maybe your wants are something that you can really play around with. You can keep the amount very fluid. So let's say you want to keep your going out budget down to like $200 a month, and you have to work within that in order to make sure your needs are met. So that's something you'll want to talk about. Discussing goals can be something you say, let's try and save this amount over the next year, or let's try and save up for a house in the next 5 years, or, let's start saving for a kid's college 10 years in the future. So there's goals dependent on the time that you're looking forward to. So that's something you'll want to think about.
Yeah, so we're going to move forward now, and we're going to talk about credit cards. There's part of that question was about joining credit cards. And this is something that we've only done in the past, like 6 months, if that?
Yeah, we actually have had separate credit cards our entire marriage, and we've been married almost 10 years now.
Yeah. And I think the main thing of that is that we each can trust each other. Like, we know what we're spending. We look at each other's statements occasionally. Danielle has a face where she's like, I don't know about all this.
I actually struggled with this. I always did slightly struggle. Obviously not enough to do anything about it, but I always struggled a little bit not being able to see exactly what he was spending. And it's not because I didn't trust, like, I didn't think that he would do something behind my back purposefully. What I do know about him is that he forgets things a lot. So I know there were multiple times where he would forget a bunch of expenses.
Oh, 100%. I absolutely did that.
Not writing them on the budget. So they just weren't in our budget at all. So he would spend, maybe his personal budget was $150 and he ended up spending $250. But we don't have any account of that because it's not on his budget. So that was actually a struggle for me, and I worried that he'd forget. So it's
and Danielle also really likes to control things, and having that little nip not in her control was driving her crazy. But that wasn't really the reason why we joined anything. The reason we did was because of rewards cards. My card that I was getting was only 1%, and Danielle's card that she was getting was only 1%. We changed over. It might have been
a little more. It was like 1.5,
but still
not good.
So we went over and we changed over. We have a City Double Cash card, which is a 2%. That's what we use for almost all of our purchases. And then we also have a Capital One Saver card that's now paying 4% for any dining and entertainment. That does come with a $95 fee. That didn't used to. It used to be 3% for those things, but they upped the percentage and now you also pay more. But we were grandfathered in that, so we don't have to pay that fee. So that card is staying with us forever because it's 4% is outstanding and we get our value out of it.
Yeah, so I mean, for credit cards, just do what you want to do. If you guys feel comfortable keeping your own separate credit cards, but of course recording everything on one single budget, then go for it. Or if you want to join them just to make things less complicated, or because that's what works best for you, then do that as well. Look for, and we have a whole episode on credit cards and thinking through that while we were doing that actually. But, look for rewards points, look for fees, look for track records, and you'll be fine on that.
Yeah, getting a credit card's really not that big of a deal as long as you pay it off. You guys said you're debt free, so I'm not worried about you.
Keep it that way.
Yeah, I'm not worried about you in that sense, but just as long as you keep paying the credit card off, they're not a problem. It's the people who can't pay them off or have trouble understanding how much you're spending, and that causes problems. You being debt free tells me that you're pretty good with your budget already, so I'm not really worried about this sense, and joining things together just makes it a little easier. You also asked about before getting married and kind of what's going on. So some tips that we would have for before you get married as far as money goes is just talk about it. How do you guys talk about money? How do you think about money? How do you value money? As we discussed previously, I don't have the same value on money as what Danielle does. She has a much different view of money as far as how to control it and use it. She's more of a hoarder of money. I'm more of a free spirit when it comes to money. I don't mind spending it on different things and get people.
He's making it sound like we're totally different. We are not totally different. There are some differences, but they're nothing that's I think less than normal. I mean, it's just everyone is going to have differences when how they think about money. But really that the fact that you don't believe in debt, that you want to save for retirement, that you want to save before you think about getting a car or a house. All those things are fundamental. And so we have all those fundamentals in common.
I would wholeheartedly agree. Danielle's purse strings are just a little tighter than mine, but that's okay because they need to be. Sometimes mine are too loose and we balance each other out with that. And I think that's how most marriages are with finances in some way, shape, or form. You usually have somebody who's a little tighter and somebody who's a little looser, and they kind of balance each other out. But when you do get into that inevitable disagreement on how to spend money, you need a way to figure out how you deal with money issues.
Okay, so a few other nuts and bolts. I know you guys listed a few things at the end of your email, and we just wanted to make sure we covered a few of the topics. You talked about life insurance. We've said this in a couple other episodes, but always get term life insurance, not whole. Whole is that it acts as a retirement account, sort of.
It acts as an investment vehicle, and that's not what that's not what life insurance is for.
Life insurance is insurance. So it's meant to be just that. And it's not that expensive and completely worth it. The term life, you might get people saying things like, well, it's only for 20 years. And then you lose all of that. If you don't use it, you lose it. Well, it's the same way with a car. If you have a car for 20 years and you have in car insurance that whole time, you're paying it, but you might never get in an accident. So you can't think of it that way. What you need to think of it as is you get a 20-year term. And in that 20 years, if you or your spouse dies, then you get the money that you need to make sure that you can take care of your kids, you can pay off your house, or do whatever you need to do on one income. Once you're past that 20 years, hopefully, your house is paid off or almost paid off, your kids are in college, and you don't really have to worry about it. So if one of you were to die, then you would still be able to survive on your own. So that's the point of term life insurance in our eyes, at least.
Right. And basically what we would recommend is doing about 10 times your income. So for you guys, it'd be about $300,000 on each of you. That's probably going to cost you in the neighborhood of $200 to $400 a year. Just a rough thing for 10 to 20 years, somewhere in that range is what it's going to cost you. It's a yearly fee you pay and it's over and done with. And the reason again for that is that if you're getting 10 times the amount, if your investment, once that person dies, if you take all of that money and invest it into the stock market, it's going to return about 10% or so if it's a good investment vehicle. And then you have that 10% that you can take out and use as an income so you don't lose that person's income. It's not crazy hard, and it's not a steadfast rule. The stock market's going to do better sometimes it's going to do worse. But in general, 10% in a good stock market with a good record is going to do just fine for you.
It's peace of mind. I mean, it costs next to nothing. It's really not a big deal. If you go and you get a physical, there's several of them that if you're able to get a physical, and they will actually come to your house and do it like in your house.
Yeah, I got blood drawn in our own house for my term life insurance.
Took no time at all. It was very quick and easy. I didn't do it because I'm scared of getting blood drawn, but I still got a good deal. But if you're willing and able to do a physical, it's very easy, and it lowers the cost and increases the amount that they'll give you too. So it's definitely worth doing if you're okay with that.
The next part of your question was about IRAs. And we both really like IRAs as opposed to 401ks for two reasons. One, an IRA, you can choose more discreetly or more concretely where you want to put your money. With 401ks, generally you're limited to the options that your company gives you, which could be great or could not be so great. With a Roth IRA, you can kind of pick through hundreds of them and you're ready to go. So you can really kind of fine tune where you're at. The other one is that a 401k, you pay before taxes, so your taxable income is less, but you pay taxes on the money that you take out when you retire. Whereas with an IRA, you pay taxes on the money you make beforehand, and then whatever your paycheck is, you pay the money into the IRA after that. The nice part about this is that when you withdraw the money when you retire, you don't pay any taxes. So as an example here, if you invested $10,000 and it grows to $100,000 when you're ready to retire, on the IRA, you already paid your taxes. That $10,000 was already taxed for it to even be able to be spendable by you. So you're done. You don't have to worry about anything. But on a 401k, you're going to be stuck paying taxes on $100,000. Granted, the tax rate for retirees is a little bit lower, but it's still taxes that's going to be more than what the $10,000 was originally.
So for our retirement, we actually keep everything separate technically, which is most likely
which you have to.
Yeah, which is most likely what everyone will do. So we each have you have a 403b or is it a 401k?
I have neither. I have a pension.
Pension.
Work, which I don't have the option of being in or not. I'm
right.
just in it. So
he's automatically in a pension. I have a 401k at work. And by the way, another thing to mention with 401ks is you should take advantage of any match that they have. So maximize the match that they allow you to have.
Yeah. Think of that
free
as
money.
Yeah, think of it as guaranteed interest rate.
Yeah, exactly. So take advantage of that. I have my own. And then we each have our own Roth IRA. And it's great because they allow you to each have your own when you're married. So you can kind of double that amount because it's $5,500 individually, but
which
then
turns into $11,000.
Yeah, then you can have that amount as a married couple. So that's how we do retirement currently. We each have our own version of a 401k, and then we also have our own Roths.
As far as saving for a house goes, the first goal is to have an emergency fund set up because that's your first goal with anything financial is to have your emergency fund. And then after that and everything else is paid for and you figure out your budget, Just go through and whatever money you can scrape together, put that into savings. It doesn't get touched. It kind of is a mini emergency fund, and that's just going to get built up to be paid for a down payment. So if you're looking at a $150,000 house, your down payment's going to be $30,000 if you want to get that 20%. So just kind of be prepared for that and just put that money somewhere. Don't invest it because investments on short term are too volatile. They could go up, they could go down, and sitting it in a bank isn't going to return you a lot of money, but it's also not going to cost you a lot of money or any money. So you're good there.
One thing that really stuck out to us in your email, and we just wanted to point it out, again, we don't want to be dream crushers at all, but just being realistic. You did say that you were cash flowing college, a wedding, you also were saving for a car, and you wanted to save for a house down payment. So that's a lot, and it's great to have those goals, but it is a lot. So just don't be disappointed if you don't hit all of those goals within the first couple years. It is incredibly ambitious. So just the fact that you're cash flowing the college and wedding is awesome because you won't have that debt. You won't be paying interest on any debt. But, especially if you're going to be looking at a more expensive car, it might be tough to simultaneously save for that car and for a home down payment. One option is maybe you don't quite get to that 20% for the house down payment. And that might be okay. It's not the end of the world. We didn't.
Not even close.
No, but within the first few years, we were able to refinance and get rid of that PMI. So it really wasn't the end of the world. So do the best you can and strive for the goals as if you have to reach them, but don't be disappointed if it takes you a bit longer.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we're going to wrap this one up because there's a lot to unpack in there, and we'll have show notes that are a little bit more detailed as well. So you can go back if you're listening, and if we didn't answer something, kind of read through what we did. But that's kind of where we want to leave things. If we didn't answer something, if you want more clarification, just shoot us an email back. We'll be happy to answer it either through email or on the digital airwaves here, so you can get those. And again, if anybody else has any questions, specific or general, we'll be happy to answer them. Please just go to our website at budgetcouple.com and click on that contact form. It goes right to my inbox, and we'll be able to answer it live on air here. First off, thanks again so much, guys, for listening. We really appreciate your time, and have a wonderful day, evening, or whatever you're doing listening to this.
Thanks. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Budget Couple Podcast with your hosts, Nate and Danielle. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit budgetcouple.com. Make sure to check out the next episode of the Budget Couple Podcast, where we'll talk more about life, family, and how to afford it. We'll catch you next time.